Good morning, and thank you for joining me for this period of reflection this morning, the 4th of January 2021, the 11th day of Christmas. What an amazing time this period is. It's still the celebration of the feast of Jesus coming, but it's also a time for looking forward to the year ahead. One of the readings in the prayer book today is from Isaiah 61. Well-known words, but I think really appropriate. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to provide those who mourn in Zion, to give them a garland instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise instead of a faint spirit. They will be called the oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord to display his glory. They shall build up the ancient ruins. They shall raise up the former devastations. They shall repair the ruined cities, devastations of generation. The second reading is perhaps even more familiar and comes from earlier in Isaiah, from chapter 9. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of deep darkness, upon them the light has dawned. You have increased their joy and given them great gladness. They rejoiced before you as with joy at the harvest. For you have shattered the yoke that burdened them, the collar that lay heavy on their shoulders. For unto us a child is born, and to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and uphold it with justice and righteousness. From this time forth and forevermore, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. The third reading set out for today comes from the Gospel of Luke, and it is part of the song of Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, again looking forward to all that is happening through what God was doing, with John coming as the forerunner for Jesus. And at the end of that passage there are these words: to give his people knowledge of salvation by the forgiveness of all their sins. In the tender compassion of our God, the dawn from on high shall break upon us, to shine on those who dwell in darkness and the shadow of death, and to guide our feet in the way of peace. We often think of these passages around Christmas. We think of the newborn baby Jesus, and that's become rather sentimentalized. It's become traditional. But do we think about it going forward, not just for Christmas, but what this means for the days, weeks, months, decades, centuries, millennia after Christmas? These are incredible words. And to me, what they're saying is, don't look at the distress and the despair and the injustice and the lack of righteousness all round about you. Well, we've got plenty of that at the moment, and I think our media are very good at finding the worst things, the most negative things, the most unjust things, and concentrating on them. No, what these passages tell us is that Christmas is not just for Christmas, but Christmas is for the year ahead. It's about the joy and the hope that Jesus brings, the hope that there will be justice, that there will be righteousness, that sickness and devastation and these burdens will go, that darkness and the fear of death will be put away. And isn't that just more applicable to us this year than at any time since the last big war? We've seen people die, we've seen restrictions on life we never imagined would happen. And yet there is hope, not just because there's a vaccine, though that is terribly important, but hope because Jesus has come into the world. And if we acknowledge him and follow him and let him into our lives, isn't that going to make it an even more hopeful and joyful place? So Christmas time is passing, yes, but the joy and the hope that came with Jesus coming into the world is only just beginning to shine forth in and around us. Isn't that a wonderful thought? Thank you.